You can go whenever you'd like.
Okay, I hereby call to order this June 14th regular meeting of the Board of Education. We do have a quorum. Members present are, including myself, Rachel Ruggieri, Sean McAvoy, Tina Malhotra, Ken Schoberg, and Kathleen Holtz. Members absent tonight will be Liz Fogel, Margaret Skanatis, and Nora Gatos. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance with everybody off mute joining me.
Do that now.
One second.
Okay.
I'd stand up.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
of the United States of
America,
America,
and to the republic
the
for which it
republic
stands,
which it stands,
one nation,
one nation,
God,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and
and
justice
justice for all.
Thank you all. I'll start with the chairman's report. First off, as we were just saying, I'd like to thank all of the people who had a hand in the successes of this year. Dr. Da Silva and the entire administration, all of the teachers, student support staff, custodians, everyone I'm unintentionally leaving out. You provided our students with the best year we could have ever asked for under absurdly trying circumstances, and we thank you very much. Next, I'd like to congratulate the RHS class of 2021. Listening to Charles, Ellie, and Kenneth speak, hearing the cheers, seeing the smiles, and the occasional backflip was truly the highlight of an unforgettable year. Now I want to speak about another performance, namely the performance of this board trying to discuss a difficult topic. Our discussion around open choice 3 weeks ago was, frankly, an embarrassment to the town of Ridgefield. If you were not embarrassed that night, watch the video. All of us should be. I accept responsibility for that night's breakdown of effective dialogue. I did not adhere to Robert's rules, and I allowed board members to speak out of turn. I allowed us to focus too narrowly on data around one particular program without discussing the plethora of data around the value of the desired outcome of that program. I didn't ensure all voices were heard. I did not ask for clarification when I felt that someone's comment did not effectively reflect what they were trying to say. But we are a board of 9, so I do want to share some of the responsibility for that night's breakdown. Some made suggestions that may have sounded good, but I challenge you to play those suggestions back through your head for each minority group until you see where they may fall short for you. Some of you remain silent on a topic that is too big to remain silent on. And frankly, some of us behaved poorly, conduct utterly unbecoming an elected official charged with oversight of an educational system. We can do better, and we will. I do intend to put the topic of open choice in particular and diversity in general on an upcoming agenda. It is up to all of us to ensure that we have an open, honest dialogue for the sake of our students and the sake of Ridgefield. I'll turn it over to Dr. Da Silva.
Thank you, Jonathan. So it was an exciting week plus one day with the culmination in graduations, 9 of them. All of them, whether they were moving up or moving on or promotion or the seniors' true graduation for all of us. And I know board members were at most of them, if not all of them. We're incredibly, incredibly appreciative of all the hard work on the part of our faculty, on the part of our students, our staff. Everybody has really come together. And Jonathan, I echo your words that we've just been incredibly, incredibly fortunate in Ridgefield from the start to the end. And so I just want to congratulate everyone on a great week plus one day culminating today. Jonathan, you brought up another point when you thanked everyone for all their hard work. And I'd actually like to take a moment to thank the Board of Education, because truly without this Board of Education, we would not have been able to sustain the year that we've sustained. You've supported our administration, our teachers, the recommendations that we've had. You've allowed us to do our work. And in many ways stepped out of the way so that we could do our work. So I do want to take a moment to really express our gratitude to this Board of Education, because ultimately you are the decision makers. And because of the decisions that you've made, and sometimes that decision is just to step out of the way and allow those that know students and education best to do the work. But really, without this board, we would not have been able to do that. And so for me, often the light shines directly on me, and that's with the good, which happens to be this time, and sometimes with the bad. But ultimately, I do know that it's really the team that has done the heavy lifting. And so I do want to take a moment, in addition to thanking the Board of Education, to thanking the Reopening Steering Committee, who had many of dialogues, and it was not always easy discourse, but we had open conversations, we took risks, we challenged one another to see whether or not we were doing our best thinking or putting our best work ahead. And as a result, I do believe that we had an amazing year. And so for though, I'm just going to truly mention each of their names because they really have worked hard. So Jill Katkosen from the elementary level, Lisa Fries, Michael Yeaget, Dr. Greenwood, Karen, Liz, Joe, Aaron Crook. Am I forgetting anyone? I hope not. I don't think I am, but truly just a hardworking team. And then on the other side of that, we had Dr. Ahern, who does work on behalf of the school system, but not the number of hours and energy that he was putting in at all. So just a moment to thank Dr. Ahern and Ed Briggs, who met with us weekly, pushed us actually often, and we pushed them often. And so just a moment of gratitude to everyone who really just, again, genuinely thought about children first, alongside health and safety, and we couldn't be prouder. Ridgefield should be incredibly proud. Also this weekend, we had the boys lacrosse team, and not to say that I'm their good luck charm, but maybe, because it is true that every time that I took my phone out and hit record on that video, they scored every single time. In the 15 years my kids have played sports, I've never been able to capture a goal, and every single time on this team. So if you saw the excitement on Instagram, it's because I was so amazed that I got it every single time. And so proud. Our children represented our town well, but even our spectators and our families, just how they held themselves, and just good sportsmanship all around. So really, really proud of everyone. I'm going to wish everyone a happy summer, but you'll know that in just a couple of days, we'll be welcoming everybody back, or those that are participating in the bridge program. So orientation and all that other stuff begins tomorrow, and it will be a busy summer here at RPS, but feel very fortunate. So ending the year on a high note could not be any better than this past week. So thank you to everyone. Have a wonderful summer, a safe summer. And we're here all summer. If you think that we're not, you're wrong. Come reach out and check in with us at any time.
Thank you, Dr. De Silva. Committee reports. I know we had curriculum and policy this week. Kathleen, you want to start with curriculum?
Absolutely. And on the heels of everyone else, I, first of all, as chair of the curriculum committee, and we've only met a couple of times this year, but I want to thank the curriculum folks, because the work that has happened, I think since end of February, early March, and is still ongoing, and has such depth, focus, and will have make such a difference in our students' lives, not only starting next week with the summer bridge program, but ongoing throughout the year. So I just want to thank not only those in charge in the curriculum administration and workers, but also the faculty who are all involved in this. A lot of what we discussed will be discussed more in depth by those who are doing the work tonight, particularly the work about curriculum summer work, as well as the summer bridge program. But there was one piece I just want to highlight that was spoken about, where they spoke about how I think particularly the administrative team and those who are working with the faculty met with an educational leadership professor from San Diego, Doug Fisher, and they talked a little bit about, as we're worried about the slide, rather than talking about that, focused on unfinished teaching and learning, and rather thinking of learning loss, talk about unexpected learning and basically opportunities and changing the paradigm. And I love that because, first of all, the message that sends our children and their families is that we can all do this. And it can happen, and it's nobody's fault, and it's just what's going to happen. So I just wanted to end with that. And finally, just before I leave, although I may not have to, I just want to echo your words Jonathan, I echo many of what you spoke about in terms of last 2 weeks ago meeting, because I feel that it needs to be an ongoing discussion and an important discussion for our committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Do we have anybody speaking for policy in Margaret's absence?
Jonathan, I could just speak briefly. Most of the policies are going to be discussed tonight as first reads. So you'll hear from Corey, you'll hear from Wes, you'll hear from Joe. So I think most of them will be spoken about tonight a little bit with greater detail.
Great, thanks. Do we have any liaison reports for this evening? No, okay, moving right along. Representative reports. I believe we are going to be without an RHS student representative. If I understand correctly, our student representative graduated a few days ago and a replacement has not yet been named. Is that correct?
She sure did. She's out of here.
All right. NEAR representative then.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Dr. Collins. I'm here on behalf of NEAR. Thank you very much for your time this evening. It's been a very, very busy month for us as a union. The last several weeks, we had the opportunity to host our general membership meeting via Zoom. And at that time, in addition to some business and some bylaw updates, we were able to elect our new executive board. That board will include myself as president. Liz Carlin will continue as our vice president of operations. Mary Ellen Foley will join us as vice president of communications. Dave Yolen will continue as treasurer, Mike Hugasian as our secretary, and Nora Marinin will continue as our lead elementary rep. And I mention each of these individuals by name because they are a very, very strong team in place to support our teachers. I'm very, very proud to partner with them. And the board itself is very proud to be able to partner with the Board of Ed and as well also the district leadership to support robust teaching and learning here in our community in Ridgefield. So hopefully next year as we move forward, you'll be able to see each of those individuals at various times through various reports from us as part of your meetings. We also had a very, very lovely evening honoring our retirees. Not all of our many retirees were able to join us, but we had a very good, solid group. We were able to gather in person for the first time in a very long time, and that felt really tremendous. We were able to reminisce together. There was laughter, there was tears. We were able to tell stories. Really celebrate some long, illustrious careers here in Ridgefield. I'm always reminded at this evening, but this particular year, I was reminded of the cadre of distinguished professionals that we are privileged to be able to work with here in Ridgefield. Then our last event was we were able to meet again in person to celebrate our building reps. These are individuals who are in each of their buildings who spend a lot of hours supporting our teachers and our staff all across the year. They're very unsung heroes. You don't hear about our building reps very often, but they do a lot of good work for us. We are looking ahead actually to a very busy summer. The last day of school obviously was today. Yay. I think we're all kind of like feeling a little bit of a grand sigh of relief that we made it through to the end. But a lot of our teacher members are continuing a lot of hard work over the summer. Many of us are teaching at the Summer Bridge program, the Summer Intensive, ESY, other opportunities put together by RPS. We're continuing to work with students that way. Many of our teacher members are accompanying students on trips for either service, such as to Appalachia or to Costa Rica for exploration. We also have teacher members who are participating in helping our middle school and high school Gender Sexuality Alliance clubs put together the Pride in the Park that's coming up on the 26th of June, as well as different activities throughout the community all month in celebration of Pride. We have teachers who are coming back into the buildings to work on preparing spaces and working on gardens to keep the gardens going all through the year. And then, of course, our special education personnel participate in servicing our special education students as well as running PPTs. So if that wasn't enough to keep us all busy over the summer, then a lot of our teachers are also participating in their own professional learning over the summer and really modeling for our students what it's like to be a lifelong learner. So while I say to all of our teachers, congratulations on finishing the year, I know that the work is just shifting. It's not stopping for the summer, it's just shifting. It truly has been a remarkable year. And I really could not be more proud of our teachers and our students for the work and the energy and the effort that has gone in. So I would like to ask you to join me in a quick American Sign Language round of applause for everybody that participated in making sure that this year was a great success. So thank you very much. I wish everyone a restful, recuperative, and regenerative summer.
Thank you very much for that. PTA representative. Hi.
Hey, everyone. Thank you, Jonathan. This is my last time I'll be coming before you as PTA Council co-president. It's been truly a privilege for me to share with you how each of our 9 units have been supporting the students, the families, and RPS over the past couple of years. On behalf of, while we're all doing thank yous, on behalf of the PTA, we really want to thank everyone over at RPS Central Office, the building administrators, faculty, staff, and as well as Aaron Crook and Ed Briggs. The partnership we had with Dr. DeSilva, Dr. Hinaway, and the rest of RPS really allowed the PTA units to reimagine social events, fundraisers, and other activities in a safe way so that they could give kids, parents, and the schools the support they needed to make it through this past year. So in fact, some of the changes might even stay for years to come. So there were some silver linings in those and the challenges. We also wanted to thank the parents for their generous support by volunteering on PTA boards, committees, activities, and their generous donations throughout the whole year. This support is crucial to the success of the different events, activities, enrichment, as well as the mini grants that each of the PTAs provide. And a final thanks to the local businesses who partnered with our PTAs for those fundraisers and events. It truly took a village to have us give the kids, families, and schools the best possible year under these circumstances. So a big thank you to everyone. Since last month, our PTAs have been really busy working closely with building administrators on end of year celebrations and activities. So here's a sampling of what's been going on in the district since then. At the end of May, the PTA Council actually sponsored a virtual discussion called "Do We Really Need to Talk About This?", where a panel of 4 experts answered pre-submitted questions and discussed strategies on how to talk to children and teens about questions surrounding race, gender, identity, culture, and ability. We'll have a link on our Ridgefield PTA Council website to a recording of that presentation, as well as a flyer that talks about the panel's background. Over at RHS, the PTSA Postgrad Committee pivoted quickly and helped with the senior event in May, which seemed to have been a big success. Also, the PTSA Beautification Committee has been working with some of the students on the gardens around the schools as well. At Scotts Ridge, the PTA contributed to the the Connecticut Holocaust Survivors Fund in honor of Judith Altman, who did her presentation virtually for the 8th graders. That's something that she's done every year that I can remember. They also organized and ran a fun 8th grade celebration held on the Scotts Ridge turf. And they supported the 6th grade end of year carnival and different 7th grade end of year activities. Over at Scotland, they had a successful readathon fundraising event in May. It was 2 weeks long, and they had guest readers like Captain Kreitz and also surprise messages from favorite authors like Dan Gutman. They had fun prizes like lunch with the principal, and you spin a wheel, prize wheel. They brought in Grace Lynn, an author, to virtually visit the students on June 2nd. And for field day, they had t-shirts for all the students along with ice pops for everyone. For their fifth grade celebration, they did a breakfast for the students, lunch at a beach party, and a visit from the ice cream truck. At Farmingville, they had a fun run to raise money for the new playground equipment. The Kona shaved ice truck came down to cool everyone off after the run. They also had a successful book fair outdoors, and the fifth grade put on a play called We Are Monsters. And the PTA again here too supplied ice pots for field day and had a moving up party for the fifth graders. They also handed out quite a few end of year appreciation gifts to the paras, non-teaching staff, as well as bus drivers, similar to other PTAs around the district. Over at Branchville, the PTA held its general membership meeting where Assistant Superintendent Ms. Gillette and the Director of Education, Ms. Johnson, did a great job with an introduction and Q&A for parents. They held an outdoor carnival for the fifth grade, as well as the fifth grade did a musical virtually of Beauty and the Beast, which was a big success. Field day was enjoyed by all. And again, they provided ice pops like the others. And the fourth grade enjoyed a PTA-sponsored rocket challenge. And those in K and 1 got to take vegetable seedlings that they started and worked on their garden too, edible garden. And over at Ridgeberry, they had their annual ice cream social, which is much different from their normal ice cream social in the past, but it turned out to be a great success. They had Gigi's family ice cream truck serve up hundreds of frozen treats, and Genoa's Woodfire Pizza prepare over 100 fresh pies for families because they were able to come safely together on school grounds. The PTA sponsored a faculty and staff ice cream social featuring Bona Bona ice cream truck and popsicles for all on their field day too. They honored graduates by surprising them with a congratulatory sign that you might have seen driving around, and decorating the outdoor space for their step-up ceremony with balloons, banners, and streamers with the help of fourth grade parents. It was a great time for all the fifth graders to celebrate by also having a graduation party at PVRA, and it was wonderful to be able to, close off the year with something fun before they head off to middle school. So, and they too also had a newly renovated vegetable garden that they're, planning to bring fruits, vegetables, and herbs, as well as enrichment opportunities to the Ridgeville community. So that wraps it up for the PTA. Again, thanks to everyone, and we wish everyone a happy, healthy, and a relaxing summer to come. And we'll see you in the fall. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Great report. A lot going on. Moving on to the minutes, approval of the April 26th minutes. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the minutes of April 26, 2021.
I have a second. Kathleen. Comments, adjustments? Any amendments from anyone? Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes from April 26, 2021, please raise your hands. Unanimous at 6. Thank you. Moving to the first discussion of possible action item. First up is curriculum update and the summer curriculum work.
Great. Good evening, everybody. I am joined tonight with Linda Johnson, Director of Elementary Education, and Dr. Eric Gundel, the 612 Math and Science Supervisor. And we're here tonight to provide an update on the curriculum development that's been going on largely in May and June this spring. So the curriculum department is full of newcomers, as you know. Most of us have only been here a few months. So our goals this spring are connected to that. These are our main three goals. One is to develop a common understanding across all the departments about the process of curriculum writing in Ridgefield Public Schools across all the stages and all the levels. And while doing this, we also want to make sure that we're honoring the previous learning and curriculum work that has taken place. So even before we could start working with teachers, we spent a lot of time looking and seeing, collecting all the documents to see what professional development has already taken place and what systems and structures are already happening that teachers are using comfortably. Our next goal this spring is to make sure that as we're doing this work, we're supporting all of the departments. We're supporting them in how to collect those documents, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, what revision work looks like, and how to set long and short-term goals that really work towards the vision of the department. And finally, a huge goal that we're going to continue to have in the curriculum department is to make sure that when we're doing all of this work, that we're creating living, breathing documents created for teachers by teachers. One of the things that we know from previous experiences is that sometimes documents are created for an audience other than teachers. So as we're creating a common structure to use across all departments, what we're asking ourselves is this work something that teachers will come back to? Is this useful? Is this something that teachers will use every day? So as this group of newcomers has started phase one of curriculum work, these have been our three guiding goals. Last time we spoke to you, we talked about the difference between curriculum and a curriculum resource. So tonight we're talking about curriculum. And really the best way to describe what a curriculum is that a curriculum is a roadmap that includes all the standards, the essential questions, and the enduring understandings that students will gain at the end of the teaching. A curriculum resource is the resource that we look to on a day-to-day basis to bring that roadmap, that curriculum to life. So in Ridgefield Public Schools, just like most of the other schools around the country, curriculum development is done by using a system called backwards design, or a method. And that was created by Wiggins and McTee. And the really important thing that we want you to take from this is what that does, backward design, is that it starts the work, it starts the project and the thinking with the end. And the end is the learning goals for the students. So what do we want students to learn by the end of the unit, which is really different from what am I going to teach? Because all that really matters is what are students going to leave with at the end. So we just wanted to highlight that, like many other districts, backwards design is the way that we design curriculum here. And that's the way it's also been done in the past in Ridgefield Public Schools. There's been a lot of high quality professional development to teachers at all levels in how to write and create curriculum this way. We are just continuing to support that methodology of creating curriculum. Next slide, please. So Linda's going to take us through what this phase one, or stage one, really looks like and break down the systems and structures that we have put together for our teachers.
Thank you, Corey. Jonathan, we can stay right here. First of all, good evening, everyone. So now we are going to transition into that first stage of work that is currently taking place. And stage one is curriculum development, revision, and collection. At this stage of the process, we are using what we know and beginning with our current curriculum guides and resources, like Corey just mentioned. As we were reviewing our current curriculum guides, we noticed that there has been some very, very good work taking place and has taken place here in our district that is grounded in the backward design model that Corey just described. And we are taking our time to collect and review these guides to get a better understanding of what revision work may need to take place. And as we've been doing this work, we've really been paying attention to what we believe are the essential elements that focus on student learning outcomes. And from there, we will and have been working with teams of teachers to set short and long-term goals. Next slide, please. So next, we are going to take you through the structures and systems that we have created so curriculum materials are easily accessible to our teachers, to staff members, to our administrators. I'm going to briefly introduce the components that you see here on this slide, and then Eric will provide greater detail and examples. So the purpose of this work is one way to provide equity and shared experiences for all of our students in the district. We have developed common curriculum templates that build off the backward design model that has been in place in the district for quite a while. An example of this is our Department Curriculum Essentials Guide that Eric is going to show you in a few minutes. And this is where each department is creating a vision, overarching essential questions, and enduring understandings. And they will all be captured on this guide. And this is also where where departments will set short and long-term goals. In addition to current curriculum, common curriculum guides, we've also established an updated shared Google Drive where all of our curriculum and curriculum resources are stored. And then finally, we created a teacher-facing, password-protected Google website where resources will be accessible to all faculty members. This website is owned by the district, so all the resources there will be there to stay. And next, we're going to turn it over to Eric, who's going to again describe these components in greater details and give examples.
Thank you, Linda. So here you can see an overview of the structure of the shared drive. And the first purpose of this drive is really to gather all of our curriculum and curriculum resources and any common documents in one location that is owned at the district level, so that if someone were to leave Ridgefield Public Schools, the documents would stay with the district and not be lost. The second purpose is to create opportunities for teams, grades, and departments to collaborate and calibrate with one another on the creation of these living documents with shared visions, enduring understandings, and essential questions that Linda and Corey were just talking about. And these will help to ensure this equity and shared experiences across the district. An added benefit of using these common templates and the one shared storage location is that any teacher can go into any other discipline's documents and they would be able to read and understand them. For example, a high school science teacher could go look through the reading department's documents to help them determine if the scientific reading they have planned is at an appropriate level for their students. And if it's not, they could look for tips on how to help guide their students through a more challenging reading. Next slide, please. Linda, Corey, and I worked together to create a teacher-facing website where teachers will be able to go to access the shared materials that I just spoke of. So you can think of the shared drive as a data warehouse and the website as the accessing point. And we're now going to go and preview this website, starting off with Linda doing a quick overview of the elementary.
Okay, so John, yep, there you go. So this is a landing page that right now primarily is focused toward the teachers who are working on curriculum development this summer. So this is where we've documented the process that everyone will be following. We have the templates available, ready to go. We put together a PowerPoint outlining the process. So right now, the first page that you see here really is for our folks, for our teachers who are working on the curriculum this summer with us. And then if we click on the elementary PK5, great. Drafty, it's in process. We're working on creating a vision for elementary education. And then what you'll notice here are common documents, PK through 5. So documents, for example, our district assessment calendar or our scope and sequence that is across all content areas, PK through 5 is right here on the landing page. And then from here, teachers can choose their grade level that they're either currently teaching, or perhaps they may go to a grade level, previous grade level to see what their students had learned the previous year and what they're coming in with. So let's say, for example, 3rd grade. If I'm a 3rd grade teacher
and I'm doing some planning, collaborating with my team, thinking about what's coming up next, what unit of study we want to plan for. This is where it's sort of like that one-stop shop. Teachers, whether it's teachers of general education or special education, can choose their content area. And this is where they'll be able to find their curriculum guides, curriculum resources, assessments, so on and so forth. And Eric is going to show you a snapshot of a secondary page. I believe Eric's going to speak to mathematics.
Yes, thank you. If you want to click on secondary, and then we can click into math, you can see all of the core subjects there. So here you can see an example of the 612 mathematics department. The vision would go up top. It's in draft form, so it's not quite there yet. You can see that document that's kind of only partially loaded on the side there. That would be the curriculum essentials, which holds the common vision, the enduring understandings, and essential questions for all of 612 mathematics. And on this page as well, you can see all of the links for all of the courses that are taught in mathematics grades 6 through 12. So, for example, similar to what Linda was saying, a calculus teacher would be able to go in to the same place and access the course documents and resources. So all calculus teachers would see the same documents and resources, and they could also go back and look at what was taught in pre-calculus to help them better plan based on the expected student prior knowledge. And if we want, we can go back to the slideshow now. And we can go to the next slide. There we go. Perfect. All right. So now that we've gone through an overview of the process and the structure of the curriculum development, revision, and collection process, let's transition into the timeline for this stage and how we broke this process down for our departments. Next slide, please. So here you can see the timeline for our work. So phase 1 is collecting all existing curricular documents into the new shared drive so that they're all in one place that's owned by the district. Phase 2 is to begin work on creating a shared vision across the department or across the grade level. Phase 3 is to review the existing documents and begin to set those long and short-term goals that Corey and Linda have been talking about. Next slide, please. Phase 4 is to actually begin working on the long and short-term goals. And then phase 5 is to submit the deliverables to the curriculum department. And this phase is really setting up the departments to work on their long-term and short-term goals in the fall. And it's our role as the curriculum department to support them in this process.
Next slide, please. So to wrap it all up, all that work that we're doing this spring is setting us up for professional development time starting in the fall and on all PD days next year for departments to work together to continue to build off of the goals that they started setting this spring. So what we did tonight was share with you where we are since February, what our short-term goals are, and where we're going on, where we are building from as we look to August and getting everybody back in a more traditional setting to continue this alignment work to really build that equitable experience for all students in Ridgefield Public Schools. So thank you so much. Questions?
Thank you. That was a very clear and followable presentation. I appreciate that. Do we have any questions from board members? Sean.
Not so much a question as a statement. First of all, I'm shocked that we haven't done any of this stuff before, because this is table stakes in most of the world where we have a shared language, shared storage, all that stuff. But I just, my statement is I'm glad we're finally investing in curriculum. It's been a long time coming, and this seems like a great start.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Tina.
Just wanted to agree with Sean. I completely agree. I think this is great. I'm glad that we're doing it. I think it's going to be so helpful. And as we move forward, it'll also help. You know, there are so many questions about what we're doing, what units are happening, even for the parents. So I think this is amazing that we're doing this. So thank you to all that who are doing this hard work. So thank you.
Agreed. If there are no more questions or comments, we can move on to Summer Bridge. And thank you very much for that presentation.
Great.
Turning it over to Dr. Hanaway, Corey.
I'm going to start and then I will turn it over to Dr. Hanaway. So Summer Bridge is fast upon us. I feel nervous saying that we have 2 days, but we are very, very excited to welcome students back on Thursday. We're really just in the sorting process, getting all of our materials together and transforming classrooms that just had students today into new classrooms to welcome students on Thursday. So really at this point, curriculum's been created, orientations happen on Wednesday. We're just really in the logistics and planning, and Liz can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, so I think everyone can appreciate that, you know, how quickly we put this program together. But I think the second half of it is that we're bringing together staff to buildings that they don't work in, at least for the vast majority of them, and families coming to buildings that they don't attend. And so with that comes a lot as it results with efficiency of people's time, arrival, dismissal, all the logistics around security and, you know, just running a building. So that is what we're knee deep in, because we want kids to benefit from the experience and not have to wait 20 minutes, 30 minutes in line to get into the door. So we're trying to think through as many details as possible, knowing that no doubt there's going to be things that we miss the first couple of days. And we just ask that families be patient with us and please give us feedback, which you're always very open and willing to do. And I think that we're excited to collaborate with the Boys and Girls Club. I had a call with Mike Flynn today. They open their camp next week, Monday. So we're working through details of students attending both and how we can think through a lot of those logistics together. So I think we're in a really good place, and we're just hopeful that kids have have the kind of experience that was intended, which we think will be the case.
We're sure that's going to be the case. That's why we're spending so much time on all this detailed planning, so that
and if I can make also
evenly
a second selfish plug, I know this is a bridge presentation or a bridge topic, but ESY starts on the 28th, extended school year for our students with special needs who are attending. It's at Barlow Mountain and Scotts Ridge. There's a 4-week program, a 5-week program, and a 6-week program.
So a lot going on.
Questions on Summer Bridge?
So Jonathan, at the end of the program, when we return in August or early September, we will provide the board with a follow-up on how everything went and what possibly we might revisit for next year if we're afforded that same opportunity.
We're looking forward to that. Okay, we can move on to action item C, approval of 2021-22 tuition for children of employees. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the proposed non-resident tuition charges for the 2021-22 school year, the proposed non-resident tuition for children of Ridgefield Public Schools employees, Ridgefield Town employees, food service employees who serve the Ridgefield Public Schools, or First Student Bus Company employees for the 2021-22 school year, be $5,295, an increase of $217. Any non-resident student who requires excess costs for programs and services provided beyond the general education program shall be required to pay the district for such programs and services.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ken. Dawn, are you going to take us through the breakdown?
I'd be happy to, Jonathan. Jonathan, the amount that is in that motion is incorrect.
Thank you.
That's last year's amount. The motion should read $5,643 for next year's tuition, an increase of $348.
Thank you.
This is the time of year when we bring the update for the non-resident student tuitions to the Board of Education for approval. The tuition is based off of two policies, 3240 and 5118A. The tuition is a calculation based off of our budget for the upcoming year. And the tuition comes to $5,643 which is an increase of $348 for the upcoming year.
Questions from any board members? Sean?
Not having read 3240 or 5118A, how do we arrive at the $5,600 figure? What's that made up of?
It's made up of the total overall budget, which is the $1.2 million. It takes out transportation, special education, and any general fund free and reduced lunch that we budget for. It takes that divided by the enrollment, and the employees are charged 30% of that final rate.
So it's 30% of our normal burden.
Correct.
Got it. Okay.
Any other questions?
And just for I have a comment, sorry.
Ken?
And Sean, just to notice, it's also noted in the memorandum that there were 10 students in 2021.
Okay, if there are no more questions, all those in favor of this motion with it being amended to $5,643, a $348 increase, please raise your hands. 6, it's unanimous, thank you. Moving on, athletic fund balance update.
So good evening, everyone. Dane Street is here to provide an update on a brief update on the Tiger Hollow project and how it connects to the athletic fund balance in a discussion that Dane has had with our first selectman, Rudy Marconi, on what the possibilities are for the Tiger Hollow project. And I'm going to turn it over to Dane. And I don't know if I'm just the only individual that might be missing your memo, Dane. I'm not sure if it's in everybody else's packet, but if it's not in your packet, I know that Dane will provide a pretty strong overview of what's happening with the Tiger Hollow project and a little bit of a sense of urgency in terms of next steps for the project. So Dane, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Susie. Just so that I know, Jonathan, do you know if the other board members have that memo?
It's not in the packet, no.
Okay. All right. So a little bit of background on this topic. As most of you know, there was a series of meetings and a lot of work done over the last couple of years between myself and town officials, as well as a representative from Tiger Hollow Inc., to put together a plan for the replacement of the Tiger Hollow track and turf. Along the way, Parks and Rec actually joined in that conversation, and we're happy that the Scotts Ridge turf is actually going to be included in this project. This project, all told, between sinking funds that were on the town's books, the contributions from Tiger Hollow Inc., and amounts that were approved at referendum both last year and this year, is roughly $2.2 million in funding. The bids came back for this project slightly over that by a couple $100,000. And so in working with town officials, we are trying to find a way to close that funding gap so that we can move forward with this project and not push it off any further. There were two main reasons for that shortfall or for the bids being higher than expected. The first one, as most people are aware, is just a general increase in construction materials as a result of COVID, that supply chains are challenged, and we're seeing an increase in prices across the board in lots of different areas. So that was one factor. The second factor is that in the pre-bid work, the architectural firm that we've been working with, Casel Booz, identified that our track in areas is actually pitched more than it should be. There is a standard put out by USA Track and Field that all tracks are supposed to pitch no more than 1% from the outermost edge of the track to the innermost. And when they were reviewing the facility prior to sending the bid documents out, they found that our track was pitched as much as 3% in some areas, which may not sound like a lot, but it does put us, officially out of compliance. If there were to be a school record or not a school record, but a state record or something along those lines, it could be challenged as a result of that imperfection. And so that was discovered before the bid went out or the bid documents went out, but it was not in time to change the amount requested at referendum this year. So those were the two main factors that pushed the bids or the bids that came in over the budget for this project. in my conversations with both the First Selectman's office, as well as his conversation with the Board of Finance, the question came up as to whether or not there were any funds that the Board of Ed could contribute toward this purpose. And in my conversations with Dr. De Silva, we thought this would be an appropriate use for the athletics fund balance. As all of you know, the athletics fund balance has been a point of conversation for a long time. This year, if you recall, coming into this year, there was actually a approval for me to use up to $115,958 from the fund balance to round out my budget for this year. Because of the way the year has played out, there are still ample funds in that account. And so my request to the board tonight is to allow us to apply that same amount, $115,958, towards this shortfall in the track and field and turf project for this summer. And then we will continue to work with town officials as well as Tiger Hollow Inc. to sort out the rest of the shortfall. That's the sort of abbreviated version. I think I'll pause there for any questions that you might have.
Dane, just very quickly, I did forward to the Board of Education Dane's memo, but the reality is, Dane, you just did a great job of walking us through that memo anyway. So I don't know that there's anything there that wasn't shared there. We also did receive a communication from the First Selectman, which I shared with Jonathan, who also communicated to Dave Ulmer, the head of the Board of Finance, and they are both in support of us using the fund balance in this way to support the Tiger Hollow project. And Dane, I know that you spoke about the sense of urgency in terms of the timing, but I think that's the critical piece here.
Yeah, so I'll just talk about that very quickly. The bid documents as they were put out in, I want to say it was late March, early April, were for the project to actually start today. We knew that we were going to have graduation on the field on Friday, and our intention was to have our contractor selected and start to break ground today. Obviously, we missed that mark. Our hope now is that by closing this gap with the help of the board tonight and the use of these funds, we can get our contract signed with the contractor for this week and begin work next week. As it is, we know that the project at Tiger Hollow is a big one. It's a complete resurface, not just a resurfacing, but a complete replacement of the track as well as the turf. And so we know it's going to bleed into the beginning of next school year anyway. The bid documents called for it to be done roughly the beginning of the third week of September. And so it's going to make it a little bit challenging to begin the school year next year. But obviously, any delays that we have in closing this gap and getting that contract signed and getting the project started are going to translate into even further delays in the fall. So that's another reason for the sense of urgency here.
So I know we had discussed, at this board, discussed sending back to the town any money left in this account. That's why I think it's important that we did get the approval from both our First Selectman and the Chair of the Board of Finance to use these funds in this manner. I do have a question though on if the shortfall was 200,000 and this is 116, where's the other 84 going to be coming from? How are we bridging that gap?
Yeah, so I've been talking with Rudy on that. We met with Kevin Redman and I'm sorry.
Dennis DePinto, right?
Yeah, Dennis DePinto and Jake Muller, also the purchasing for the town. And right now, the contingency for the project is 60,000, and so that's a big chunk of the remaining piece. And so, and Tiger Hollow Inc. has agreed to continue to do their fundraising to close the remaining gap. While the contingency fund is there for a reason, obviously, as we work our way through the project, we may find there's something else that needs to be addressed. Rudy and the town officials felt like they would be comfortable moving forward, signing the contract, even with, knowing that contingency was factored in.
Any board questions? Any board concerns? Okay.
So I just had the question. So like you said, we had told the town essentially that the surplus would get transferred to them. So now we're saying we're not going to transfer the surplus to them. We're going to spend it in this way.
Well, no, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, or do we transfer it to the town and then the town can spend it in this way?
So Dawn, you can jump in here too, but my understanding of this was we had said we were going to transfer back to the town any remaining balance at the end of the year. That's still the case, by the way. Dawn and I were looking at budgets today, and we feel like there still may be some funds left in the fund balance at the end of the year that would still go back to the town. But essentially, this is just a timing piece where if we wait for all of the accounts to settle out entirely, we could be looking at August before we're actually able to transfer those funds back to the town and then be able to put them, apply them towards the project and get it moving. And again, as we've mentioned, this was discussed with Rudy, who also spoke with Dave Ulmer on the Board of Finance, and they were all in favor of moving forward in this manner. It's essentially, our recommendation would have been to turn the funds back to the town and they would apply it to this project. And basically we've gotten their approval to say, let's just move forward and put it to that use right now.
And this is not a sweep of the entire fund balance. This is the piece that we had already authorized, Dane, for you to use as part of your budget this year.
Correct.
We actually, I'm not sure that we authorized a particular amount. Dawn, you'd have to clarify that. But because at that time, we were not certain what the fund balance would ultimately be. Is that correct, Dawn?
Sort of. When the budget was set for this particular year, it was undercut. Athletics was deliberately undercut by $115,958. And it was decided that they would undercut it during the budget process and he would make that up using his fund balance that he had out there. He was ending the year approximately 178,000 in his fund balance. So there was enough funds for us to make that determination during the budget timeframe. So it was known that 115,000 was needed to close that revenue expense gap on his budget, so that the use of fund balance was already going to be slated for $115,958 at budget time. So it was kind of approved in that matter. What we weren't sure of is whether or not he would need to use all of that because his expenses were 115,000 more than what our estimated revenue was going to be. Had he needed, it was a normal year, he wouldn't have those funds to move forward for this project, but he does have them at this time. So it's really just using those funds that were already slated for out of his fund balance for athletics, the purpose of that, and that anything that would be above that would go back to the town and used for the manner in which our request to them was, or they decided to do. Does that make that a little clearer?
Yes. Any other questions? Sean.
Not being a turf field expert in any manner, is there any opportunity to speed things up during the implementation phase? And B, has the technology progressed anywhere that allows us more on the back end of this project?
Yeah, so the project itself, in terms of a timeline, it remains to be seen. There are certain pieces of this that require time. When they put down the new track, it's going to require that there's curing of the asphalt before they apply the rubber, surfacing, those sorts of things. So there are pieces of it that are certainly weather dependent. If we get a nice stretch of weather, we might be able to save some of that time as we work through the project. As far as turf is concerned, absolutely. You may recall that if you've listened to some of the conversations on this topic, that we looked at a couple of different turf options, and one of the ones that we're putting in is actually a pad that goes underneath the turf. It guarantees a certain level of softness, and it also changes the actual turf system on top of it, where, not to get too long-winded on it, but the product itself is different as a result of that guaranteed softness underneath. The typical lifespan of a turf field is 10 to 12 years. That's what we'd like to see. We're certainly on this field, we're on the shorter end of that. And there are some questions as to why that is. Some of it is usage. Some of it is a question about the actual product that we got the last time around. And that's why I feel very comfortable working with Casel Booz, who we've contracted, Tiger Hollow actually contracted with, to do this initial work, because they are turf experts. And so, while I know some about it, they are certainly the ones that will be here and helping us through the entire project to know that we got what we asked for and to get exactly what is going to give us the best facility for the next dozen years.
Thank you. Other questions? If there are no more questions, I would entertain a motion that the Board of Education approve the use of $115,958 from the athletic fund towards the cost of the Tiger Hollow track project. Would anyone like to make such a motion? Rachel? Thank you. Do we have a second? Kathleen? All in favor? 6, that's all of us. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dane.
Get to
Thank you
work,
very
Dana.
much.
Okay, policies. These are all first reads, starting with policy 3524.2 green cleaning programs.
Okay, that will be Joe. Joe, do you want to start us off on that one?
I was going to start it off if that's okay, Dr. Silva.
That's fine. If not, I could do it too. Go ahead.
This is a policy that is brought before you based on Shipman and Goodwin's recommendation for this policy. We currently don't have this policy in our policy, and it's something that we already do practice. If you look out on the website on facilities, you'll see that we have a green cleaning program that follows pretty much what this policy is. So it's just memorializing what we actually do and putting it in a policy.
Anyone have any questions or concerns or amendments? Sean?
Just a cursory reading of this. The way I would read this is parents aren't allowed to send handy wipes with their kids to clean their hands. Is that correct?
So yes, Sean, great question, and Ken had the same question. So it's a typical, for the purposes of this policy, that's correct, at least for the purposes, I'm sorry, for the purposes of cleaning. So oftentimes parents may send, teachers may send an email saying, can you send in baby wipes? Maybe that's to, or Kleenex to wipe their noses or to clean their hands, if that's how the kids prefer to have their hands clean. But for the purposes of cleaning, no.
Cleaning. So if my kid, if I put handy wipes in their backpack so they can wash their hands, that's no.
If you put baby wipes or hand wipes in their backpack so that they can wipe their hands, that's fine. If you send baby wipes or hand wipes or Clorox wipes so that we can clean our desks, that's not fine.
Okay.
Yep. It's really, this is intended for the purpose of cleaning.
I get it, but as I read it, it doesn't read that way. And I go through a lot of these with these policies where it just doesn't read the way that it should.
We talked, Sean, about being sure that our handbook helps clarify that as well, or the handbooks that go home to families, and being sure that our staff is aware as well.
I get it, but we went through this with masks on Zoom conferences once upon a time because the policy really clearly read that you have to wear a mask on a Zoom conference if you're home alone. And I'm just asking that we make sure the policy, we can put ancillary stuff in packets to parents. The policy is still the policy, and this is the letter of the law. And if the letter of the law is wrong, we've got a problem.
So I think it is important, though, that we differentiate between, so this is cleaning. This is for the purposes of green cleaning. And so throughout this policy, it's talking about the cleaning of things, not the cleaning of children. And so I think that is the distinguishing difference, Sean. I mean, if there's something that we can add to clarify that, or if it's really about how
I would add that personal hygiene would be the exception. It's pretty simple.
This is a first read. We can have the policy committee look at that.
I get it, but that's an easy exception. If not just hand sanitizer, baby wipes, what have you, should be an exception.
We'll bring it back to committee, Sean. Thanks.
Yep. Thank you.
Kathleen, did you have another comment?
I was just going to say personal hygiene, put in there, could clarify it for everyone.
Yep. Okay. We'll bring that back to committee.
Anything else on this policy, or should we move on? Okay, next policy up is 4118.5, employee use of district computer systems.
Hi, everyone. It's me, Wes. So these three policies are replacing very, very old policies. And if if I just want to give kind of a helicopter view, the first policy is, both policies before we get to the third one are very old and they're very granular. And we opted to look for, CABE has an updated version, but we opted for the Shipman and Goodwin because the language in these new Shipman and Goodwin policies are more appropriate for modern use of computers. The other one was very granular of like how you should use an actual physical district device for personal gain. These are a little bit more like, if you're using a device, you have to do appropriate rules and regulations connected to, and you can see that in the documentation. The second one is replacing a very old policy on just communications in general. It was referencing MySpace. And again, it was very granular of, if you take a photo of something and you post it on social media, it opens up this whole kind of like dialogue of between district and parents and students. And this is a very clear policy from Shipman and Goodwin that basically just says like, social media should not be used to interfere, disrupt, undermine, should not be used to engage in harassing. It was a more broad generalization. And the third is ask for a policy deletion. This is a very old policy where it was at one point in time, we would bring in someone, a third party, a student, a teacher, could bring in a third party device and make a wireless network. This was before Wi-Fi existed in the system. And this policy doesn't even exist anymore. So CABE got rid of it. Shipman doesn't even have a policy for it because you shouldn't be bringing in your own network devices. If you're in school, you should be using our network. And this is a very old policy that predates Wi-Fi in the buildings.
Okay, so let's start with this 4118.5 district computer systems. Do we have any questions regarding that one policy? No, seems pretty cut and dry to me. 4118.51 network and electronic communications. Any concerns or questions, amendments on that policy? No. All right, and then 4118.8, the deletion of this policy. Any concerns there? Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Great.
Moving right on, the next one is policy 6111, school calendars.
Okay, so that one is me. So what's our policy, you'll notice, our previous policy was written, it's not attached, it was written in 1985, I believe. And part of the recommendation of our policy was that the superintendent would provide parents and the board, or the board for approval, 3 years worth of calendars. And it appears that my predecessors may have kicked that down the road a little bit because someone permanent was coming. I also think that it was kicked down the road a bit because that's really hard to do because you don't know how things are going to change or evolve. As we researched communities within our district reference group or our neighboring towns to actually get calendars beyond this year, very few of them have actually even approved, beyond next year. Very few of them have even approved beyond next year. Only one other community that we learned of late last week actually does 3 years of calendars. The reason I share this and why it's important is because oftentimes when you're creating calendars, not that you're necessarily benchmarking off of other districts, but you are trying to look at, okay, where are the vacations? Where are the holidays? Because many of us serve each other's teachers, right? And we want to be sure that there aren't that many conflicts. So what we've looked to do is we looked at a new policy from Shipman that allows for at least 1 year ahead, but not necessarily 3. It also outlines some statutory requirements, which include identifying the graduation date as statutory requirements, as opposed to being specific. You'll notice that the red line says on graduation that in the past, we would have to identify that the graduation date no earlier than 180th day. Well, rather than just saying whatever the statutory requirement is, that's when we'll do it. And you'll notice that we pulled out the language that included the RESC. So you may remember a few years ago, we were required by law to have a calendar that was in alignment with the regional educational centers for some of the reasons I actually described before, with sharing educators and common vacations. We no longer have to do that. So those are the reasons that those are redlined as well. So we're removing the 3 years of a calendar. We're removing the item that says we have to be aligned to the RESC, and we're including language that just says all statutory requirements rather than the specificity of the 180th day. So I'll take any questions.
Are there any questions?
So by
Think we're
June
good with this.
24th, we do hope, sorry, Jonathan, by June 24th, we actually do hope to have one more year of a calendar draft to share with you that we'll continue to work on over the summer.
Great. If there are no more questions on this one, we can move on to the last policy of the night.
My understanding of this is,
Go ahead, Kathleen.
Go ahead.
my understanding is it simplifies it. It doesn't mean we don't have to look so far out that it becomes untenable. 'Cause
Correct.
about
Just
2
as
years
an
ago, we had that
example,
issue.
right, just as an example, next school year, you may remember we decided to bring in a February break. We may assess the February break and say, you know what, this doesn't make sense. Kids are extending the vacation. We're going too far into June. We think we want to revisit that. It doesn't represent the values of our community anymore. So we may have to live with it for another year because we have one more year, but we're not living with it for 2 more or having to revise that calendar. So it allows for some flexibility and not looking too far ahead and being able to modify and adjust as we learn things as we go.
Good.
Makes sense.
Okay, I think we can send that one back to the committee and move on to policy 6172.6, online courses and credit.
Okay, so that's me. So this policy is a combination of the CABE and the shipment policies, really leaning more on CABE. And what was really important to us at the high school was to make sure that we had a policy in place. We don't currently have one, which would allow us the flexibility as we move forward with different online options, but also give us a process that students would go through in order to be permitted to take online courses. So we believe that's what this policy does. It opens it up to 9th through 12th graders when currently practice is only 11th and 12th graders, but because there's a clear process outlined in this policy for course approval, we feel like this allows outliers and opens the school to providing a bunch of different possible opportunities that we may not even know of yet for online learning.
Any questions on this one? It's a long one, but it seems to make perfect sense to me. Sean, go ahead.
First off, I love the idea of offering some enhanced curriculum in a remote. I mean, they do it in college, so for high school kids to get a jump on it. My only concern is overachievers that currently load up on stuff that are going to find themselves being able to take a couple extra courses to even do a little bit extra, and I think that could be damaging.
You are very aligned with the high school and the guidance department. So they feel like this is written in a way that the school will be able to prevent students from overloading themselves, especially in the earlier years of high school.
Any other questions or proposed amendments? Okay, we can send that one back to committee.
I agree, that we don't want kids to overload themselves, but conversely, as I've been saying all through this, if we found anything, there are students who can excel and learn online so effectively. Let's take that and build on it, because it's what's going to be happening. So I appreciate it, but as long as the guidance counselors and parents can help.
Okay, that's that. That one can go back to committee and come back to us for our second read. Moving on to action item F, Chartwells contract renewal. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the Chartwells contract amendment for the 2021-22 school year.
Do I have a second? No, no second. Oh, Ken, go ahead. Thank you. 10 seconds. Dawn, you want to bring us through this?
Happy to. Normally at this time, what should have happened is I'd be bringing before you a selection for an RFP, as our food service contract would have been up, but we received a waiver by the state for 1 year because of the fact with COVID and so many buildings were closed. Many of us that had our contracts up that we would have to go out on RFP weren't able to have vendors come through and see our kitchens and walk through our schools. So they gave us a waiver for 1 year, so that this approval of this contract is only for 1 year. And we will be RFPing given that the upcoming year is a normal year within the buildings themselves. What's before you is the contract that has been agreed upon by the food service company itself, Chartwells. It has been vetted through our legal department and their legal department, as well as it has gone up to the state and been approved by the state of Connecticut's Department of Education of Student Supports and Organizational Effectiveness, Bureau of Health, Nutrition, Family Services, and Adult Education.
Okay, so it's a 1 year renewal, then this is going to go out to RFP next year, correct?
That is correct.
Any questions on this?
Jonathan, not on this, but just something that we could publicly share. Dawn, did you mention about the free lunches for next year? I know it's been in our memos, but maybe it's a good opportunity.
Yeah, let me just give it a quick little update. The state of Connecticut has filed for a waiver from the federal government to partake in a program that the federal government has for giving in the entire fiscal year next year free lunch for all on the National School Lunch Program, which would be all of our elementary and our middle schools. In addition, we have been working with the state of Connecticut to add the high school to the free meal program for next year. Currently, right now, our high school is not part of the National School Lunch Program, but we will be able to add the high school to a free meal for all students for the entire fiscal year going next year. We have a few things that we need to work out as the menu needs to change a little bit. The portions and the sizes, they all have to comply with the state of Connecticut's regulations. What we can offer in the school has to comply with the state of Connecticut regulations. And so we're working with the food service company right now to update all of that. Memos will come out eventually. So we're kind of excited that all students in all of our schools next year will be able to have free meals for the whole fiscal year.
Great.
It's great news, and certainly I think for families that may be looking to get back on their feet after a difficult year, and even for those that are not, it's a great option. It doesn't include all the extras. That was a little bit confusing for some families this year. So it's your primary school lunch, but it's still a great benefit. So I'm sorry to take you on a bird walk, Jonathan, but I just thought
No, that's okay. But there will still be options for purchase for students, correct?
Yes,
absolutely.
All right, any questions on this? On the contract renewal itself? Okay, all those in favor of approving the contract amendment for the 21-22 school year, please raise your hands. 6 unanimous, thank you. Next up is insurance broker change.
Yep, if I could just take this one as well. I just wanted to give everyone an update. We've been working, I know during the budget process, it was mentioned that the town was looking to change our liability carrier broker. They have been working really hard in coming up with a way, we were looking for cost savings. And in doing so, they've chosen to go with Connecticut Interlock Risk Management Agency, also known as KERMA. There's been many meetings and many communications between us, and they have been working on most of the policies. There is going to be somewhat of a savings overall of our policies between the town and the Board of Education. Exactly what those rates are for the renewal, we don't know what that is, and we don't know what the breakout between the town and the Board of Education actual expense is going to be. So more information to come on that, but I just wanted to update everyone that the town has chosen to go with KERMA, which is Connecticut Interlocal Risk Management Agency. And so our policy carrier and broker, for whatever policies they don't cover, they would broker them out, will be changing starting July 1st.
So Dawn, as of right now, KERMA, it will be our primary carrier, but I think I just heard you say that there are some portions of our policy that can't be covered by KERMA. So therefore the KERMA will need to broker those other pieces out. We don't exactly know what our cost is going to be at this point. Is that correct?
That's correct. And for example, KERMA doesn't cover workers' comp, so that would be brokered out. Doesn't cover the cybersecurity policy that we have, so that would be brokered out. But most of our liability, our buildings, our LAP, auto liability, and property policies would be covered by KERMA.
So we don't know yet what those savings will end up being for the district.
They're working on getting those policies up and running now. And once they do that, we'll know what the Board of Education's portion is. Those policies are inclusive board and town on one policy. And then we're told what our expense is going to be based on that.
Any questions? Sean?
We had a big discussion about timing of renewals and how many months ahead, and does this solve for any of that? Or are we still going to be caught up in getting, for all intents and purposes, fake numbers when we do our budgets?
My understanding, Sean, is that KERMA is a municipality broker insurer, and therefore they do have rates available during the fiscal year renewal process and they're going to be a lot quicker. Where we don't have that we're working on is the medical insurance. That is not necessarily a quicker renewal process.
So the answer is partially.
Well, this is a liability, yes.
Any other questions? Look forward to seeing where this ends up. Hear more over the next upcoming weeks, I assume.
July 1st is around the corner.
Okay, moving on. Student Chromebook update. Do I have a motion?
I move that the Board of Education approve the purchase of student Chromebooks in the amount of $254,320 from a vendor associated with a state bid.
We have a second. Ken. All right, who's going to talk to us about this one?
Okay, a couple of us are. So Dr. DeSantis is actually going to go through a brief presentation, but ultimately the motion is to allow us the opportunity to purchase the Chromebooks when they become available. So it's a story that's been told over and over again, and I don't want to keep repeating the same story. But essentially, when those Chromebooks become available, we want to be able to use a vendor, whichever, as long as the vendor is aligned with the state bid in that amount, because that's what we've estimated it to be for the purchasing of the Chromebooks. And Wes will walk us through that purchase. The reality is we are not sure at this point whether or not if we were able to purchase them now, then we're going to take advantage of that. Obviously, we're not sure whether or not we're not sure whether or not we would be able to purchase these with operating funds, because we're not sure if we have them. But if not, then we would look towards our grant money to help purchase these, because it's important that our kids have them. And if we don't get them early enough, or order them early enough, likely it's the fact that it's likely that we would not have them for the start of the year when our children arrive back, and we want to be as prepared as possible. So Dr. DeSantis is going to give us a little bit more of a comprehensive presentation, and he can answer any questions with respect to the student Chromebooks.
Absolutely. I'm going to go very quick. I realize we've been here quite some time. I'm just going to share my screen very quickly. Can we see my screen? Thumbs up if you can see my screen. Good. All right. So I'm just going to do a quick recap on the teacher Chromebooks. They have just started to arrive, and those teacher Chromebooks have actually now, the older ones are no longer in operation under the Google Update system. So they are still working, but they're slowly aging out, which means as the days go on, more and more items will no longer be working on them. And these are older slides that I've showed earlier. We did a lot of teacher survey data to get those teachers Chromebooks out there. And the one that we did end up going with is the Dell Latitude 5400. This unit, which I'm going to show here in part of my testing, is next to another brand new unit. This over here is a Lenovo on the right. The one that we went with is the Dell on the left. I'm going to say it, Susie, don't hit me. It is the world semiconductor shortage. Yeah. And one of the biggest issues we're having is we're having Chromebooks that are available, but their performance is so poor that we can't really get good ones. And this is where we'll talk about the student ones in a moment. I'm just going to show this quick little video. The one on the right, these are both comparably known units in terms of specs. The one on the left is the one that we went with. I'm opening up the same Google slideshow. It's actually the curriculum from May 3rd. And if you notice how much faster and nicer the screen is, and the one on the right is so much slower. The one on the left is not only loading up the screen, but it's also running a full Google Meet with a simulated background. And they're both a comparable price. So one is clearly a much higher performing model for around the same price. So we really did our due diligence in finding the correct models to buy for our district. So this moves us to what you've just had the motion for the second wave of student Chromebooks. We did the same amount of research on the student Chromebook end. And right now we are currently in the middle of our massive major Chromebook collection. We've never done this before. Not only have we handed out Chromebooks K through 12, but now we're collecting K through 12 Chromebooks. And we're going through the whole myriad of Chromebooks. Some of them are going to be sent to recycling, and then the rest will be recycled into the system. I've already presented this slide at prior committees. If you guys have any questions on it, I'd be more than happy to answer anything, but we are going through a one-to-one K through 12 or K through 3. We'll have them in the classrooms and available if they need to be taken home. And then 4 through 12, we'll have one-to-one available. 9 through 12, we'll actually have a BYOD. But this is the big slide I wanted to show. I know it looks a little complicated. I have showed this one before, but we would like to be giving new Chromebooks grades 6th and 9th. And then we have Chromebooks given to 4th graders. Those will be lightly used. And this way, that 6th grader keeps that Chromebook for 3 years. And then that 9th grader will keep that Chromebook for 4 years, because we noticed that the bare share of our 9th graders, they start out with Chromebooks, and then by the time they're juniors and seniors, they're using their own computer and they hand back the Chromebook. But this is very important for this ask, is this second wave of Chromebooks will ensure that I can do this. So, and we are looking at certain models of Chromebooks that we'd like to buy from the state supplier to keep with equity between schools. We want to make sure that, let's say, both middle schools get the exact same Chromebook with the same level of performance for the new Chromebooks. And right now we're just looking and hoping that these things become available, because I'd rather buy something that works properly and during the right period of time than just hastily buy something that doesn't. But this would ensure this cycle that we can start, and this will set us up for the future. That's the goal, where we can start planning for incremental upgrades and replacements for technology every year or so, where we don't have to kind of restart the whole system over and over and over again. Any questions?
Sean?
As somebody who's living the semiconductor shortage every day, I appreciate the challenge there. Love the work that you've done in finding the right ones. Love the life cycle. With the teacher stuff, with the student stuff, how far are we into Chromebooks budget-wise? We're over 700K so far this year?
I
Probably,
would,
yeah, if you were to include the teachers plus the students just now, Sean, it would be over 700.
And how much are we
Yeah.
getting back in ESSER for this stuff?
So the town that we're not getting back, quote unquote, from ESSER, the town's funds are different. For Dawn keeps track of how much we've spent related to COVID with respect to technology, and she's provided that to our board and then subsequently to the Board of Finance at our monthly meetings. With respect to our funds that we can apply for in the grant, one of the priorities can be equity of technology, but it's just one. It's actually one of the ones that are further down. We've elected, obviously, to spend our funds, and will continue to, if we're able, to prioritize teacher time with kids and service time with kids. So it's not so much that we don't get a rebate. We have to apply for a grant, and part of that grant could include the technology.
Question though. Other questions?
Actually, I'm sorry, just to add to that, Sean. So if you were listening, when I was thinking about at our Board of Finance meetings, that's been a big part of the conversation in relation to the town funds that they're receiving and the impact that the school district's COVID funds have impacted them. Ultimately, I think that's a piece that they can rely on.
Other questions? So every year in this model, we'll be buying Chromebooks for the 6th graders and 9th graders.
6th graders and 9th graders. And then the other idea would be, and this is something we'll be presenting next year, start introducing a product cycle in the district where, let's say, one year we focus on high school level technology, then the year after that middle school, then elementary school. So we're not doing this whole large burden for buying, all 500 plus teachers technology one year, and then so on and so forth. So the idea is we're using this to set up a good base, and then we hopefully will never have to do this again. And we can start doing a good stewardship where every year we just focus on a chunk, and then over the course of, let's say, 3 or 4 years, no matter where you are in the district, something has been replaced, rather than just kind of like having technology exist in the district until it's just no longer feasibly to be used anymore.
Thank you. Okay, if there's no more questions, we can bring this to a vote. All those in favor of approving the purchase of student Chromebooks in the amount of $254,320. 6, that's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, and that closes our discussion and action items for tonight. Moving on to correspondence to the board, starting with public comment.
Good evening. We do have public comment this evening. So our first public comment is from Colleen Broderick, 18 Mimosa Court. Good evening. I would like to express my gratitude to every Ridgefield teacher, staff, bus driver, custodian, administrator, nurse, school lunch worker, substitute, tech sports person, and member of the BOE for showing up every day for our kids and community this year. Your effort, flexibility, and expertise during this entire year was remarkable. I wish all of you a relaxing summer filled with fun. And to Jonathan Steckler, I appreciate your strong statement at the beginning of the meeting on the open choice discussion a couple of weeks ago. I agree that it was an embarrassment to Ridgefield, and I am glad to hear that this important discussion on open choice and diversity will continue. Have a great summer. Second public comment is Robin Collins, 86 Lakeside Drive.
It's in the sheet now, Rebecca. Rachel, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Thank you, John. I am reaching out to express concerns around the conversation on open choice at the May 28th board meeting. Many comments made by members of the Board of Education were disheartening at best and disturbing at worst, as they reflected apparent misunderstandings and misinformation around issues of equity and inclusion. As a resident and parent in Ridgefield, I sincerely hope the comments made during the conversation do not reflect the perspective of the community at large. They certainly do not reflect my own. Okay. And we have one more. And the third public comment is from Milagro Scala, South Olmsted Lane. My name is Milagro Scala, and I am here as a concerned parent in our school district. I am concerned that the children have been wearing masks up until the last day of school and now summer activities, and there seems to be no end in sight in regards to the upcoming school year, despite the mounting evidence confirming that children are the least vulnerable when it comes to COVID-19. I'd like to understand when I can expect this information. Connecticut has one of the highest vaccination rates in the country. Ridgefield has the lowest rates of infection in the state. And I presume that you are privy to the devastating state of mental health of our kids. Forcing children to wear masks at this point in time, when we are out of a state of emergency, is an outright abuse and conducive to the breaking of the human spirit. The mental health of our children has been exacerbated to an all-time high, and it is the responsibility of the parents to decide what is right for our children. I'm here to say that masks are not okay for my children, and I am not alone. Some children will be going to school for the first time this fall. A smile means the absolute most to them at such a vulnerable time. It's how humans communicate. My heart breaks to think of these tiny humans embarking on their lifelong journey of learning with a mask on their face. For what I ask, if adults can congregate at restaurants over cocktails, why can't my child learn at school in peace? On June 9th, 2021, in a state of about 3.5 million people, 57 people tested positive for COVID-19. That's 0.000016% of the population. What's the lower number you've looking for here in order to unmask the kids? I'd also like to say that I'm looking forward to the Board of Ed meetings being reinstated to the normal meeting capacity so that I may attend and read my own comments. Thank you for the ongoing dedication to this very important work, and I look forward to the updates. Regards, Milagro Scala. Okay. And our correspondence report, we have received 11 emails since our last regular Board of Education meeting. 2 emails were in regard to healthy school start times. 6 emails regarded the open choice program. 5 of those emails advocated for the program. 1 email was in regard to curriculum. 1 email shared many thanks and appreciation to the RPS community. And 1 email was an invitation to view the RHS 2021 Virtual Science Research Symposium. Thank you.
Thank you. That means we have come to the bottom of our agenda. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Sean,
Oh,
Sean beat you to it. Who wants
Sorry.
a second?
Kathleen.
And you want a second?
No, Kathleen.
Kathleen seconds. Okay, all in favor?